All right, so we got a comment on our last live show from Shane Powell. Enjoy the show, but the only cricket pod with consistently terrible comms. Drop Jaleesa and be professional, please. Well, Shane, Jaleesa is not here, and this looks really bad for me because it looks like I've punted her for Bharat Sundaresan, but it was just literally a coincidence. So, Bharat Sundaresan from Crick Buzz, SEN, everywhere. How are you?
I'm very good. Sorry, I think that's Jalissa. I think she wants me off the show. Yeah. So, no, I mean I bring the hair to the show, so that's the only comparison I can make with Jalissa. But yeah, let's do this. It's been a uh, it's been a I've been hassled over the last few weeks. I'll be honest. It's been difficult for me to get a visa to go to Pakistan. I would have been there ideally. I was booked to fly out on Sunday, but hey, I mean there are more important things happening in the world. So me not being there to cover that series is it's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm still hopeful. Fingers crossed, I'll be there. But for now, I'm here in Adelaide talking to you guys.
Pakistan's loss is our gain at Cricket Unfiltered. And of course, I'm with Paul Dennett. Paul, welcome.
Hey, Menners. Hey, Barrett. Look, I'm really pumped up. I always get pumped up before a test series, but I think short of an Ashes maybe, and this is one of the most I've been looking forward to a test series in a long time. I can't wait for it to start on Friday.
I'm really pumped up because this week, Paul Dennett and I have got the call up to commentate on the Women's National Cricket League next Tuesday. New South Wales hosting South Australia in Hurstville Oval, local for Paul. So Paul and I are getting back into the cricket commentary game next week. Huge boost for cricket in this country, as well as the Test series. So I'm really looking forward to that, Paul, calling that game with you.
Yeah, Hurstville Oval, where I used to live, and the very famous ground and a lovely ground. It can't wait. Looking really forward to it. The only problem is that this monsoon that we're having in Sydney might have the last say.
Yes, and look, we're going to preview the Pakistan Test series. Lots of headlines, but Barrett, I just want to get this on record before Jaleesa quits the show. I did ask you at the very last minute to come on, didn't I? This was not a hatchet job. I didn't read Shane's message and then try and weasel you in instead of Jaleesa. I asked you at the last minute when she kind of gave us the runaround.
Well, you did mention something about some fellow called Shane, but yeah, it was last minute.
Good. Well, the Pakistan Test series starts this Friday. 3 Test matches. They start in Rawalpindi, then Karachi, then Lahore. I mean, Paul, you put together some compelling stats about the history of Australia-Pakistan. Do you want to take us through them, or Pakistan-Australia?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's been a long time since we've been there, as everyone knows. But in the whole history of Australia touring Pakistan, Australia's only ever won 3 Test matches in Pakistan itself. There have been 10 draws, and Pakistan has won 7. Now, that's from 1998 and earlier, so it's a very different era. You would never get a ratio of draws that high these days. Looking at just the recent series where we might have some relevant comparisons, Australia struggled. So we were there in 2010-11, but that was in England, so it wasn't really relevant. 2014-15, we were belted 2-0 in the UAE, a series I remember fondly because I had money on Pakistan. And I think that was the series of Zulfikar Baba, one of my heroes as a result of what he did to Australia. And then 2018-19, we got beaten 1-0. Would have been 2-0, except for the heroics of Usman Khawaja. So it's quite remarkable in the sense that you look at that series history. Australia's going over there with 0 practice at all, and yet you look at the betting for this first Test match and convert it to percentage chances, and it's Pakistan 37%, Australia 36%, and the draw 27%. So even against all of that history, the punters basically think it's a toss of the coin as to who's going to win.
Barrett, what are you thinking? I heard Nathan Lyon just speaking about the pitch over there, that it's looking, no grass, pretty flat and shiny. So I think we're going to get what I expected: good batting conditions, then reverse swing, then a bit of spin.
Yeah, that's generally how most pitches are in Pakistan. They're very different to what you find in India or Sri Lanka. Some parts of India, maybe. And one characteristic of those pitches in Pakistan, generally, you could compare it with the old Sharjah wickets, where you could almost see the batter's reflection or the bowler's reflection of it. And, they're generally quite good for batting. There aren't too many very difficult pitches to bat on in Pakistan. If you see, at least in my memory of watching Test cricket in Pakistan, you rarely get a rank turner or the ball dominating play. Of course, everything changes once reverse swing comes into play. So the lengths that the fast bowlers bowl is generally very different in Pakistan than anywhere else, and it is a hard grind. The games you have to play the long game. You have to hang in the game, like Australia found out last time, even in the UAE, because Pakistan also, and I'm sure we'll talk about the squads or the players to watch out for on the Pakistan side. They generally have these battle-worn spinners that they use against Australia, guys who know everything about the conditions, and it's the same this time. So there's so much intrigue, and there are so many unknowns that we will discuss as the series progresses. But Rawalpindi, as we've been hearing a lot, it does favor the fast bowlers. It does not mean that fast bowlers run through sides. It basically means that it will seam around a little. It can swing. Australia going to Pakistan at a time when it's still cool. The weather's not. It's not going to be very, very hot. So the ball will still do stuff early in the morning, in the first session or so. But yeah, I mean, it'll come down to reverse swing and how Australia are going to handle it. Think about it. Rawalpindi Express, Shoaib Akhtar comes from there. But the bowler, I'm sure Paul is on top of his stats as always, who's taken most wickets for Pakistan in Rawalpindi, Waqar Younis. A lot of them would have been that.
Yes, and that's the only slight sort of hesitation I have in terms of looking forward to this series, that the anticipation that I get from Pakistanis on Twitter seems to be at a level that I've never encountered before. And it's as though they've said, we're going to put aside any skepticism we have about this Australian side, about, the fact that they've actually turned up. The reaction on Twitter has been so genuinely delightful and charming and welcoming. It's just a wonderful explosion of joy. I just hope we're not going to have too many days where it's grinding attritional cricket and then everyone will say, well, what was the point?
Nah, I don't think, even if we do get the grinding attritional sort of cricket, which I think we will, not always, but there will be times, especially as we move into Lahore and Karachi. But this just is, it's a huge moment in the history of Pakistan as a country. Cricket plays such a huge role there. At some levels, even a bigger role there than it does in India. And for them to have been robbed of seeing their players in the flesh for 10, 12 years, and finally things opening up. And for a team like Australia to go there, right, whether you like it or not, whether you want to call them the big three or not, I mean, England, India, Australia are the bigger teams in world cricket. Also the fact that Australia is it's not one of those experimental tours where Australia said, okay, we'll go there, play 3 one-dayers in the same center in the space of 6 days and come back. This is a full-fledged tour. You're playing 3 test matches. So, and then staying back for the white ball stuff, regardless of which players are staying back. So I think it's a huge moment in the history of Pakistan as a country, because if this tour, fingers crossed, goes through, perfectly, seamlessly, then Pakistan can open the doors to everyone else, maybe except India, to travel there and play a lot of international cricket. So regardless of what quality of cricket we'll get, I think we'll get proper hard-nosed cricket, seeing the two teams. But whatever happens in the cricket, I think people will come in there and just, scream their lungs out.
Yeah, because
I was just going to say, I just cannot wait to see Australia play a test match overseas. I mean, it's been so long, especially the last time was in England, which is, I mean, it's not that exotic, but I mean, this is going to be a completely different experience. And I actually love those attritional sessions when Australia is in India trying to, scrape every run together. I can't wait for that.
What I was echoing some of what Bharat said and what I said earlier, that on Twitter, as everyone out there who's familiar with Twitter will know, that you could send the nicest tweet in the world and just a lovely tweet, and you will still find people who in the comments are having a go at you somehow. You could say, I've just cured cancer, and someone would say, well, I don't know, something nasty to you.
Yeah.
This when they set up the tweet of Pat Cummins in the hotel foyer, the Australians have arrived. I went through every single reply, and there were dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. Shows the state of my life that I'm doing that, and there was nothing nasty. It was just welcome, welcome, charming messages, genuine excitement, and I think it's naive of me to hope for this, to wish for this, but it's a pity that this wasn't going to be on free-to-air television in Australia. I know there's no chance of that ever happening, but in Australia, it's going to be lost a little bit in the start of the football codes and everything else. It would be great if we had the same excitement. Cricket fans certainly do. Hopefully, it can be like that 2001 series between Australia and India. That was transcended the football codes and was the biggest talking point in town. Hopefully, this can do for the Australia-Pakistan rivalry what that series did for the Australia-India rivalry.
I think we're fortunate that the cricket's on Foxtel and therefore News Limited will push the tour a little bit, and also the fact that SEN, the radio station, are covering it, which means it won't just get lost in AFL talk. All right, let's get into the cricket headlines and all the build up to the first test, because a lot has happened. All the Aussie players have been doing Zooms over the last few days. Let's start with the bad news first. The first headline is that Ashton Agar's partner received a death threat to her social media account, which has since been found to be less than credible. So that's all fine. But, New Zealand received threats on social media and they left.
Yeah, but I think it's you can't judge them for having left either.
I'm not. I'm just,
yeah, no, absolutely. But it is, and that's a problem with social media as well. Like like Paul said, you can get negativity thrown at you for whatever you say, whatever you do. What really worries me is these people who indulge in this. I mean, just how warped their minds have to be, or heads have to be, to think up such a plan where you are targeting not just a player but a player's partner, and then pretending to be someone from that country, pretending to be from Pakistan, and doing this. I mean, how messed up are you in the head to even think up a plan like that? But yeah, I mean, look, I think when they say security these days, I don't think it just involves security on the field. It involves security on social media and everything. I think everything will be scanned. But that's the one issue of being on social media. Not just if you're a celebrity, but even for us, right? You're never, spared this negativity, and it's up to you not to take it seriously. But when it comes to a level of a death threat and those things, what do? You have to kind of hopefully hope that it's a hoax, but still be kind of wary of it.
Yeah, and it was good that they've got to the bottom of it and cleared that it basically was a hoax and not from someone in Pakistan at all. But in terms of the security, from everything I understand, it's literally going to be the equivalent of what they give to the president of the United States. That there's going to be, I've heard numbers of like 1,500 security personnel and helicopter above, and Wi-Fi being disabled, and streets being closed down. And it just sounds like they are going to move heaven and earth and spend a lot of money in doing so to ensure that there's just absolutely no way that anything can go wrong, which I suppose is what has to be done. But it's a monumental effort.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they're kind of they're kind of used to it, like you said. I think Bill Gates was in town just a few weeks ago, or they've had other leaders from other countries visit as well. And you have to understand the magnitude of this. As we spoke about how big it is for Pakistan that Australia spent a whole month there, but even the slightest incident, even one incident here or there, and their future, in terms of cricket, is on the line. They could well be sent back to that period where nobody was touring. So they are making sure that nothing goes wrong. And it's good to see that the players have embraced it. You can get a little put off by that level of security, especially you're not used to in countries like Australia. We, to an extent in the subcontinent, are more used to it. But it can put you off. But in a way, it gets you to focus on your cricket and nothing else.
That's right. The next headline, Fawad Ahmed, the Australian leg spinner, is joining the support staff of the Australian team. I think that's because Shree, the spin coach, couldn't get a visa. So Fawad Ahmed's just won the Pakistan Super League. obviously left Pakistan a long time ago. But yeah, I think that's great. I mean, Fawad Ahmed's a friend of the show. He's a terrific guy. I think he didn't play enough cricket for Australia, so I'm thrilled they've got him in as a bit of a spin guru. I think he's got to get through quarantine. He's almost ready, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Sriram's been with the team since 2016. I think Paul brought up the loss to Pakistan in 2014. It's around that time that Australia decided that we need to, get someone a subcontinent specialist almost, who will help us in those conditions. They lost in India and then they lost to Pakistan and the UAE back then. And yeah, he's been with the team, has built quite a relationship. But like you said, Fawad has played with the majority of them. And you could see the excitement in all the players' voices when they speak about him coming back into the mix.
I don't wish any ill at all on Nathan Lyon, Ashton Agar, and Mitch Swepson, but it would be quite a moment if somehow they got all three of them got injured and Fawad had to make his debut for Australia. That'd be pretty cool.
It's not the Women's World Cup.
And I bet caught Khawaja bowled Ahmed, on an Australian scoreboard. Who knows? Yeah.
All right. The next headline: Steve Smith spoke to the media yesterday, so that's Tuesday Australian time, and said that he had to go and face fast bowlers in the nets for the first time, but he was feeling good with his concussion, so that's a positive sign. And he was asked about his form, and he made the point that he's got a very good record overseas. There's very few Australian batsmen that have accomplished what Smith has overseas. And I think he's looking forward to trying to repeat what he did in the 2019 Ashes.
And I think Steve Smith it's hurt his cricket that he's not been able to travel because of COVID and all that. Like you said, I think Steve Smith, the batter, thrives on playing in different conditions and, adjusting his game to that. I mean, 3 straight home summers. He's had long breaks between test matches.
Yes.
And, he speaks about how every preseason he has to work about. He forgets how he holds the bat. So he starts from scratch. So I don't think he's got time to get into that rhythm of playing consistent test cricket. So I think the next 12 months will do Steve Smith a lot of good, because he'll be testing himself in different conditions and he'll be in the rhythm of test cricket. And I have a feeling not only will he score runs away from home, but watch out for Australia and Steve Smith in the next home summer when South Africa and West Indies come.
It's going to be really fascinating, because I just feel as though at the moment he's almost reached a slight tipping point where, for the last few years, if you said to most people who's Australia's best batter since Bradman, I think maybe the number one remark would have been Steve Smith. His average now dropped back well and truly into the 50s. If he was to have a poor series this time round, then I start to think that Ponting might take back that mantle. And it's going to be, because, as you say, the pitches are expected to be flat. Left-arm orthodox spin has troubled him in the past. Naman Ali could be quite a handful for him. I'm really hoping that he can have an absolute bumper series and we can get a few more years of Steve Smith being the best in the world.
It's a real shame that effectively we've lost basically almost 3 years of Smith's career. The 1 year ban, then 2 years of COVID with very little test cricket. It is a real shame, because I think he could have given some of the big numbers in cricket a real shake. And
I agree.
Yeah, that was at his peak. All right, Usman Khawaja spoke to the media as well this week. He was born in Karachi, and he said I think he moved to Islamabad and lived there for a little while. So he's obviously very thrilled to be back there. He said it is strange, though. He said he won't be able to see any friends and family because they're in such a tight bubble that he's got relatives there, but he won't be able to get near them. So it'll just be like playing back here. But I think it's really good for him to be back there. And he did say his dad was sort of hoping to get over for the tour. It's obviously not going to happen, but you can imagine how special it is for Khawaja, this tour.
And I knew that he could speak Urdu, but I heard his Urdu the other day, and I was like, wow, he can speak proper Urdu. And then I started thinking about, I hope I've not said things about him in Hindi in his presence. Now that I know he understands Hindi and Urdu are pretty much the same, But yeah, it's a huge moment for him. And look where his career was like 3 months ago. I remember covering his bat off here in Adelaide between him and Travis Head. We thought his test career was over. And here he is back playing cricket, and that too, in his original motherland, as they say.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's going to be, as you said, Ben, is that it's almost as though they could be anywhere, given that they're going to be hotel to ground, and in between not really being able to sort of experience the culture. Hopefully, if this tour goes off without a hitch in future tours, maybe that can be relaxed a little bit. But yeah, you mentioned it as one of the stories of the summer, Menners, and it certainly is. Khawaja back in the side. You would have got good odds about that 2 years ago when he was kind of struggling for a run in the Sheffield Shield. It's a real delight to see him back in there. And you made the point, that he's he grew up to a degree in Islamabad. And for those of you who don't know, I know I've only just discovered this myself. Rawalpindi and Islamabad are basically sort of the one big city, almost like Sydney and Parramatta or something like that, where they're connected to each other. So very exciting for Usman.
All right, so I've got a question and a concern. From all the talk, it feels like Australia want to start with the same side that played in Hobart. So they want to go in with their three quicks, except probably Hazelwood will come in for Boland. And then they would want to play one spinner. It seems from the talk that that's what they want to do. But I'm worried that we're going to the subcontinent and we're not being flexible enough. I mean, surely if you've got Green and you've got two quicks, don't you play another spinner?
You play your best 11, Menners. Like, when did Australia last win in the subcontinent? In 2004. How many spinners did they play? One. Yes, it was Shane Warne, but you have Nathan Lyon. And his, he hasn't played enough in the subcontinent in the last few years. But his last tour to India in 2017, which was 5 years ago, was a revelation. Like, you compared the Nathan Lyon from 2013 and 17. He was he'd become a world-class bowler by then. So I think it also will depend on what Pat Cummins is comfortable with. He is a fast bowler's captain, and he's comfortable dealing with this formula that he has. And in Rawalpindi, I think you have to go in with more pace because of what we hear the conditions will be like. But if Australia do well in that test, I won't be surprised if you don't play the second spinner. I mean, there's no point playing the second spinner for the sake of playing the second spinner, right? Unless the pitch is a rank turner. Like, you might have to do it in India. But in Pakistan, I still think with Manas Labuschagne, who I think is a very underrated bowler. If you remember the last time they went to that part of the world, not the subcontinent, but UAE, Manas bowled a lot of overs. He used to be a rounder back then. So I still think they can use a lot of him here and stick to what they have. And if things don't work out, then of course, they can bring in the second spinner, whether it's Swepson or Agar.
Wow, conservative.
No, I think it's attacking. I don't think it's conservative if you stick to your strengths because everybody says go to the subcontinent, play two spinners. A lot of teams do that. I think that's conservative. That's basically just being conventional, listening to everything that people say. I think,
but we won one test in India on the 2017 tour. Stephen O'Keefe bowled us to victory. I mean, that was our second spinner.
But no, you're not going to get a pitch like that ever again.
That's true, but.
Well, I think that looking at it in a different direction, I suppose, even if we didn't play another spinner, if it's going to be one of these pitches where bat really dominates ball, and we've struggled in the past on our batting has struggled against the Pakistan bowling, and if we've got Cameron Green, and if there is going to be a lot of overs coming out of Nathan Lyon, I suppose you could make an argument that someone like Ashton Agar could come into the side at the expense of one of the quicks, partially to strengthen the batting and partially to say we've got Green, we've got two quicks already. Do we need effectively four quicks given that the spinners are going to bowl a lot of overs? So I think that then you'd say, well, who would Agar come in for? He's not going to come in for the captain. They're not going to want to drop Stark because of the potential for a reverse swing. And whether it's Hazelwood or I think it will be Hazelwood, it's very hard to not pick Hazelwood in a cricket side because he's just so darn good. So I think they'll talk themselves into that first 11. But I kind of can see both sides of your arguments. I'm not sure which way I fit.
Because my gut feeling is, being thousands of miles away, is Pakistan will turn out pitches that are flat and turn pretty quickly and give very little to the quicks, because I think they'll know their best chance is their spinners against our team, because Australia has this terrible record of batting against spin. So I just think they'll throw that at us. I know they've got some good quicks, but I reckon they'll back their spinners more than their quicks.
That's why it's just such a pity, and I'm saying this because I'm contractually obliged to mention Glenn Maxwell every show. It would be such a pity that we couldn't have Maxwell in there at the expense of a quick bowler. We get the extra spin. We strengthen and lengthen the batting. I mean, there's been times I've thought when we played in Pakistan, we should just go with 11 batters because...
yeah.
So, Go on,
Yes. So I was just going to read out Australia's first test side: Khawaja, Warner, Labuschagne, Smith, Head, Green, Carey, but I think Inglis is knocking on the door, baby. Then Stark, Cummins, Lyon, Hazelwood. So I think that'll be the 11. But what I want to ask you both about is, I've been diving into this Pakistan squad, and I know the batters, I know the quicks, got to the spinners. I was like, okay, who's Sajid Khan? And, I'd heard the name. Who's Nauman Ali and who's Zahid Mahmood? So you've got an off spinner, Sajid Khan, and Nauman Ali, and I'm not even saying that right. Is it Newman like in Seinfeld?
No.
Numan.
Numan Ali.
Numan, yeah.
Numan Ali, left arm orthodox, and Zahid Mahmood, leg spinner. So I guess, Barrett, do you know anything about these? Cats?
I think Ali has been playing first-class cricket for the last 15 or 16 years. I think he is a lot like Zulfikar Babar. He's Zulfikar Babar.
My hero.
Yeah, reborn in 2022. He has like a lot of first-class experience. He's got the break in Test cricket very, very late, which does happen. It's funny, Pakistan throw in their fast bowlers very, very young, but they don't mind throwing in a 34, 35-year-old spinner into the mix, especially a finger spinner. So he's one of those classical Pakistani spinners. I think he's more in a like not a Jadeja mold, but he'll be more accurate. He'll be at you. So he'll bring LBWs a lot into play from whatever little I've seen of him. But he's a wily. He knows these pitches like the back of his hand. I think Sajid Khan is the off spinner who's made a great start to Test cricket. I was seeing a clip of his backstory, and wonderful backstory where he had at one point moved away from cricket. I think he had moved to the UAE to work, and then he came back, and his mother has been a huge backer of his, and he's come back to cricket, and he's also in his late 20s. He's also played quite a bit of first-class cricket, can hold the bat as well a little bit, and he's going to, him and Ali will be I think will start the series, but I think Zahid Mahmood has also played quite a bit of first-class cricket. So they might not have Yasir Shah, they might not have a big-name spinner, but these are the kind of spinners who do the goods for them in home soil. Even if you go back to when they were playing in the UAE, you would have someone like an Abdur Rahman come and have the same effect as a Saeed Ajmal, like he did against England and South Africa and Australia back in the day.
I think that Nauman Ali, to me, might be the key for Pakistan. That he's got that. He bowls a little bit like Jadeja, but I think with a little more flight. And he's sometimes when he just lands them, you just look at them and think, oh, he's the sort of guy that you'd take none for 200 in Australia, but put him on a pitch where it starts to turn. He could roll through, a bit like Michael Clarke used to do. Like there's a tiny bit of Michael Clarke even in him. That but obviously he's a lot better. He's got a first class bowling average of 25, which is very decent. He is getting on a bit. He's 35. And as you said, he does have that sort of, not to be cruel to him, but like not like Zulfikar Babar, he doesn't necessarily look like an athlete. But I think that of all the players in the Pakistan side, I think he's the one that Australia should be most worried about. And also they've got Iftikhar Ahmed, who bowls some part-time off spinners, and he's taken his first class wickets at 29. So if the pitch does turn a bit, there's another option that they've got there as well.
Now, Paul, on your Pakistan team, you've got Shaheen Afridi and Nazim Shah as the two quicks. Do you agree with that, Barrett? Do you think they'll be the two quicks?
Now that Hassan Ali is not there, I think the big thing is Fahim Ashraf is injured as well, right? And he plays a huge Cameron Green-like role for them, bat seven and bowls effective spells. So I'm not sure who will come in his place. But yeah, I guess Naseem Shah, of course, we Australians will remember him as a 16-year-old who came here, lost his mother at the start of the tour, but still made his Test debut. Youngest to take a Test hat-trick, if I'm not mistaken. So, and to see him in front of his home fans will be quite something. So I think without Hassan Ali there, they might go to him, and with Haris Rauf would have been the first option. But again, who also is very well known in Australia. But now him testing positive to COVID means that, Naseem Shah should walk into the side.
Yeah, I've been chatting to SM Hussain, who's a friend of mine on Twitter. He tweets at Court at Point. And I've sort of based my 11 on what he said, and he's got Naseem Shah coming in there at number 11. He's another one that's fascinating because he's so exciting, and he's got a bit of that crazy fast bowler where he could go for none for 200, or he could blow you to bits. I'm a bit worried. He's got quite a expensive record. So he's the sort of guy that if he doesn't get it right, then it could go wrong in a big way. So it's a bit of a risk picking him, but it's certainly going to add some interest to the series.
And then I guess moving up the order rather than down the order, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the middle order players for Pakistan in particular. Babar Azam, we know, is electric. Azhar Ali's got a brilliant record. But then Fawad Alam, I don't think he's played against Australia. And he since he's come back into the side, he's batted beautifully, and he was ignored for years by Pakistan. So it's another great story, a bit like Usman Khawaja. And Fawad Alam is the opposite to George Bailey. I think George Bailey used to bat with his back to the bowler. Fawad Alam's just standing there. So they're three I'm looking forward to, and then Mohammad Rizwan Zadasha at 6. What about you two?
Well, Fawad Alam, I think he's an even better prospect for Pakistan in this series than Babar Azam. I find it amazing that he could average in the mid-50s for so long in first-class cricket. And like they picked him in 2009, and then he was in the wilderness for a decade or more. And he's averages 48 now in Test cricket. He's not young. He's 36, but yeah, that's the thing. You notice first of all that he's a left-hander and he looks like he's facing the bowler as the bowler runs in, and then he switches up and bats properly. But forget that, he can actually play. So I think he's the most dangerous batter Pakistan actually have.
I'm also looking forward to their opener, Abdullah Shafiq. I've been watching some clips of him from his under-19 days, and I think he made his first mark in the PSL, making a famous 100 now. But then he's started well in Test cricket. Got some runs, and I think he has both gears. He can be a dasher at the top, but he can also buckle in. And they without Abid Ali, I think he's injured. Made such a great start to Test cricket again. Someone who's had to wait a long time to come back in. So you would assume that I thought Shan Masood is still in the mix. Yeah, he is, of course. So Shan Masood might open, or they have Imam ul Haq, who's been in and out of the side for quite a while. So for me, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing Abdullah Shafiq. Young batters do well against Australia. Pakistani batters. I go back to even those who would come here, like Mohammad Wasim. I remember scoring runs here and over there in 97, 98 during that period. So I'm looking forward to him. And I think Mohammad Rizwan is, he can put his hand up to say he's one of the best wicketkeeper batters in the world right now across all formats. If not already, he's up there. He's not too far from Rishabh Pant. So I think between number 1 and 6, I'm looking forward to those two. And of course, Babar Azam will, he will hold court whenever he gets his chance.
Yes, and with Abdullah Shafiq, he's a classic Pakistan selection. He's played 2 tests and he's only played 5 first-class games. So you'd never see that sort of figures in most countries where they can be thrown into the test side so quickly. I think he got picked. He'd played 3 first-class games and then got straight into test matches. So yeah, he's someone who another from Quarter Point said that the chief selector Mohammad Wasim rates him very highly. So he's someone who'll be interesting to watch as well. So yeah, I think that their batting lineup is pretty solid, and it's going to be interesting to see how they compare to Australia in foreign conditions.
Alrighty, let's do a prediction for the series. I'll go first to give you 2 time to think about it. I'm giving my series result, and it's also the first test result. So I think the series will be 3-0 Pakistan. And the reason I think it'll be 3-0 is Australia's had no preparation. We haven't played overseas for 3 years. I don't think we can match Pakistan spinners. I don't think we can bat very well against spin. I think the games might be close. I don't think there'll be sort of games where we get walked over like India does to us often in the subcontinent. But I think Pakistan will be too classy and they'll get the chocolates 3-0. Who wants to go next?
1-1. I think
1-1.
There will be a draw. I can picture like hard-fought draw somewhere. I won't be surprised if Australia starts strong and then Pakistan come into the series, maybe draw the second test and win the last test to, finish the series sort of dramatically to level the series. That's how I see it happening. I don't know. What about you, Paul? Are you with me, or are you going to go Pakistan's way or Australia's way?
No, I've got no idea. I mean, I looked at the I put through each of the 11 players and predicted what I thought their average might be. Like I'm trying to pretend to be on a computer model, a very poor computer model, and then added them all up. Added them all up, and some of predicted averages for Pakistan was 321. That's with the bat. And Australia was 343. With the ball, 28.3 for both of them. So then you factor in Australia's had no preparation. We always struggle in those conditions, but we a better fielding side. And I always get a bit concerned with Pakistan being quite conservative. You know, they're the sort of side that can take a wicket off a no ball and that sort of thing. So I basically, my predicting came out as a tie. So that's useless.
Three ties and nil.
Three
all
ties.
at the
It's gonna be an awesome series. It's gonna be an awesome series. No, but I think
of all time.
nothing would surprise me. You could not come up with a series score that would surprise me. But if forced to pick, I'll probably split the difference between you guys and say Pakistan 2-1.
All right, good one. All right, cannot wait for.
Oh, one other thing. Sorry, just so I can get it out there. So if it's wrong, I can look silly. I did look into the forecast, and as Bharat said, it's a lovely time of year over there. It gets very, very hot in Rawalpindi, but at the moment it's passing through the real temperate phase. So the maximum temperatures are going to be sort of 22, 19, 22, that sort of level. A lot of the Pakistanis on Twitter are worried about there being rain. It's not the monsoon time, but rain can certainly fall in Rawalpindi at this time of the year. But I'm going to go on record and say I don't think that rain's going to affect the match. I've gone through the forecast in some detail. And from, 11,000 kilometers away, I'm confidently predicting that we're not going to get too much rain. And the other thing, if you don't know, that Rawalpindi is a very long way north. It's a lot further north than sort of the bulk of India. And it's sort of it's not that far away from Kabul in Afghanistan. It's not actually even that far away from China, and it's right near sort of Kashmir, the sort of disputed area as well. So it's mate, if you do get across there, Bharat, I'm very, very jealous. I'd love to be going. It looks like it's an amazing part of the world.
Oh, absolutely! It's one cricket country I've never been to, and I've always wanted to. For obvious reasons, I've never got an opportunity. Hopefully, someone there wants me, so that I get to go.
All right. Well, that was our preview of the Pakistan-Australia Test Series. Let's move on because there's a couple more cricket headlines bubbling around. The politics and machinations in the Australian dressing room keep on bubbling away with the sacking of the Australian physio, David Beakley, just before this tour. Ben Horn reported today in the Daily Telegraph that he was sacked by Ben Oliver, the high-performance manager, and reports are the players are not too happy about this. And I heard, Nathan, did you hear the press conference, Bharat, with Lyon?
No, I missed it. I was but I did read his quotes though about David Beakley.
Yeah, and he certainly said that how much they valued him, and he did say that they make all the decisions up the top, but he didn't sound happy.
No, he didn't. And I think he was part of that mix with Andrew McDonald and Michael Divinito. I remember the day after the Gabba test finished, I was staying not too far. I was actually staying with the legendary Robert Craddock. So I was not far from the Ian Healy Oval where Australia A were taking on the England Lions. So, I had a day off. So what better thing to do than to go watch an A game? So I walked there and there weren't too many people and I was just walking around. And I remember bumping into Andrew McDonald, Michael Divinito, and the physio. And you could see, he was an integral part of that side, that support staff. And I've been seeing him ever since I've started following Australian cricket. And even some former players have come on record. I was just reading whether it's Ryan Harris or, even James Pattinson, and said how big a role he played. So, I don't know whether it's Cricket Australia taking those
flexing
calls.
their muscle.
Flexing their muscle is one reasoning I read somewhere. Because I am surprised because he did seem to be like an integral part. And one thing I do remember about watching him in the nets is his skid is beautiful with the gloves. I remember 2-3 years ago, he was 3 or 4, and I think he outkept Tim Payne. And this is in Tim Payne's words.
Further proof that the specialization required to be a wicketkeeper is vastly overrated. Now, I would hate for it to be that they have. Surely that can't be true. That they have decided to sack someone that they wouldn't have otherwise sacked simply to give a message to the players that actually we run the show. I would find that to be extraordinary. I can't imagine that's true.
Yeah, it's hard to speculate on it because we literally know nothing. Could be something completely different. but it's just interesting that obviously Ben Horn from News Corp's been given this story that the players are unhappy. So it's just interesting following on from what happened to Langer, this power shift.
And it's the first time the word sacked has been used in Australian cricket for a while. Parting ways. There are so many other ways of putting it. The fact that they've said he's been sacked almost tells you like something has happened, like because of which it's happened. I think there will be more to it in the days to come.
And someone who wasn't sacked, but I don't think we reported on this on the show. It happened a few weeks ago. The longtime Australian team manager, Gavin Dovey, has left the setup. And he's been with the team, I think, since 2013. So
maybe
a
longer,
long time.
2011.
Yeah. So he survived Homework Gate, he survived Sandpaper Gate, but eventually he left. And I mean, I think there's a lot changing in that Australian team now.
Yeah, I guess like with the way the setup was in their Australian team, and Justin Langer and Gav Dovey worked very, very closely with each other. And of course, like you said, Gav Dovey worked similarly with other coaches as well in the past. So with Langer moving, and like you said, he survived a lot of upheavals in Australian cricket. Maybe the time had come. Maybe it was his personal decision. Of course, as we know, he lives in England, doesn't live here. It was something. Just speak to people who know a lot about the mechanization of the Australian team. Not many are surprised that once Langer went, Gav Dovey left not long after.
Yeah, I guess the final bit of the puzzle was that in Ben Horn's article, he insinuated there was tension between Ben Oliver, head of high performance, who probably backed Langer more than, say, Nick Hockley did. That's interesting. Anyway, we've talked about politics ad nauseum for the last 2 years, it feels like. Next headline, some funky rules for the Women's World Cup in New Zealand because of the restrictions there on travel and everything. Teams can field as few as 9 players for it to be an official World Cup, and female support staff can be called on as sub-fielders. They can't bowl a bat, but that's weird in a World Cup for them to be so loose with the rules, and makes me further question their reasoning between forging ahead in New Zealand, where they're so limited with what they can do.
Yeah, actually, you're right. I mean, I remember last year suggesting that when we didn't know how long this COVID was going to last, and you didn't know how much longer these bubble tours would last, that maybe there should be 2 or 3 recently retired cricketers as part of the support staff in every team, not just the women's team, but men's team as well. Just because you never know. I remember last year when India were here, a couple of times the fielding coach had to go out there and field, thankfully, in the practice game. And we'll be seeing that happen more and more. I remember the New Zealand media manager, this is before COVID, when they played a test match in Sydney, he was padded. I mean, he was in his whites waiting to come out. So hopefully we don't see that during the World Cup. I think Lucy Williams can handle herself on the field, though, having said that. So, but Australia have some pretty, legendary names in that support staff. So if Shelley Nitsky has to come out and field, I don't think she'll do that bad a job. But hopefully it doesn't come down to that. But yeah, the 9-player thing reminded me of the under-14 rules that the SACA have for these games. Like as umpires, you're given a sheet which says that till the time there are 9 players in each team, you can go ahead with the game. So hopefully we don't see SACA under-14 rules being played out in the biggest stage for women's cricket.
And there was a warm-up game on Tuesday. Now look, I'm on the last show I said New Zealand are Australia's danger side in this 50-over World Cup. And in this warm-up game, they towed Australia up. Australia batted first and made 321. New Zealand got it 1 down with almost 7 overs to spare. Sophie Devine hit a lazy 161 not out off 117 balls. And Amelia Kerr, who's had some issues where she's sat out with some cricket through mental health, made 92 not out of 75 balls. And, she's a player that's scored a double hundred and taken 5 wickets in a game. So, watch out for New Zealand. I'm looking forward to the Women's World Cup. How about you two?
Definitely. And it's the sort of thing that if you were playing Australia and they've been dominant for so long, you'd sort of say, well, we might as well absolutely go out it there and maybe they play still slightly more traditionally Australia, that maybe there's an opportunity to play much more aggressively. And if you get bowled out, well, you get bowled out. I love it when sort of these sorts of things happen, that if you're an alien coming down, and you saw that the practice matches, New Zealand got beaten by Pakistan, and then New Zealand went out and beat Australia. And you'd say, okay, well, based on that information, what are the chances of winning the tournament? Again, if you look at the odds and convert them to percentages, Australia's a 52% chance of winning the tournament, and Pakistan has a 0.6% chance of winning the tournament. Yeah, you look at those two, you think, well, you know, maybe Pakistan is a chance of a bit of an upset there. Obviously, it would be a pretty massive upset. But it's been good in those warm-up games that there have been a couple of interesting results. That South Africa almost beat India, and what was the other one?
There's a
just trying to find the other one that was semi sort of an upset. I think that might be the New Zealand losing to Pakistan. England today hammered South Africa, so that's kind of putting things into perspective for South Africa. But you'd sort of say that Australia, India, New Zealand, and England, all four of them have a real chance. Obviously, Australia's the short price favourite.
Yeah, Barrett, what do you think about India? Because World Cup finalists last time.
Yeah, and for once the BCCI seems to have put their money where it matters in making sure that the Indian team gets a 5-match ODI series against New Zealand in the lead up to the World Cup. So they have spent a lot of time in New Zealand getting acclimatized to those conditions. They came so close to creating history 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago now in England. So there is some pressure on this Indian team to go one step further. And like they showed during that tour of Australia, 6-7 months ago, they can compete with the best teams. And I think these 5 ODIs, even if the series didn't go India's way, I think will play a huge role, or should do them some good. Similarly with New Zealand, to have like a highly competitive series just before a World Cup, even if it's on home soil, is going to do well for them. In terms of Australia, the only thing is they're so used to winning ODIs, but they have put that pressure on themselves to make up for 2017. It's a little different that, maybe they cruise through the league games, but once it comes to the knockout games and they start thinking back, if they do think back to 2017, you never know which way it'll go.
Yeah, that's what I think, because I still think, Barrett, when especially England and India and New Zealand are at their best, they can compete with Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that was the headlines. And let's get into viewer questions. First one from VJ. If a seamer is to be dropped for Australia, who will it be, Hazelwood or Stark? Paul?
I think it would end up being Stark, but I don't think that they'd be contemplating dropping him for the first test. But I'm sort of saying maybe if Stark had a poor first test and we did go down your route, Menners, then I think that Hazelwood's probably less likely to have a poor first test. Hazelwood's much more solid. Stark could blow them away, or he could go for a few runs. I think it was actually me. I might actually go into the first test with Agar instead of Stark. I wouldn't be the one. I wouldn't want to be the one that told Mitchell Stark that, though. I'd delegate that.
Nah, I think the way Stark's been bowling, the rhythm he's been in, I would just play him. I would just start with him because the ball will reverse swing. And, I think the Australians should be well versed with it. I think if it is reversing, you need that from Mitchell Stark. It's the whippiness in his bowling action will come in handy. But look, Josh Hazelwood is arguably the most improved fast bowler in world cricket. I mean, look where he's taken his T20 bowling to. So it's going to be a tough gig, and that's why I think all 3 will play all 3 tests.
The other thing, on that if they need to drop Cummins, they should drop him. They shouldn't have a second thought around the fact that he's captain. If he needs to be on the bench for a game, then the fact that he's captain should make no difference. But it would, obviously, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think Stark's reverse swing. I mean, I remember in the tour to Sri Lanka about 6 years ago, he bowled some devastating spells with an old ball. So we might really need that. And then the other question is, if 2 spinners, who will be the second spinner with Lyon? I know, Paul, you said Agar. I don't want to see a finger spinner. I want to see Swepson play and partner Lyon.
I mean, if Swepson doesn't play here with Tanvir Sangha with every performance in Shield cricket, Swepson's chance might never come. So if I think we've reached that point where if you think back, Swepson's been with the team since the last tour of the subcontinent 5 years ago to India. So yeah, I'm with you. Menas. I think if they play the second spinner, it has to be a positive move, which means you have to bring the leg spinner in. And then leave out a fast bowler rather than bring Ashton Agar just because he gives you that all-round comfort.
Yeah, I think it would be harsh on Swepson if they jumped Agar ahead of him. I think they would probably at this stage certainly have Swepson as their intended second spinner. We were at the Shield last year in Wollongong and he bowled a ball that could have been bowled by Shane Warne. It was an absolutely superb one of those Gadding type balls, maybe not as massive as that, but I just think I know what you mean, Menas. I like a wrist spinner as well, but sometimes the subcontinent, I think that's the finger spinners that can do the trick. So if it was up to me, I'd have Agar in ahead, but I don't think that's where they'd go.
And we answered your question, Martin Lawrence. The same question about the second spinner. Now, Paul's going to get all giddy here because it's a question from the US. Jay Dutcher. Hello, guys from the US. Excited to watch some cricket this week, probably on Willow TV. Who takes the most wickets for Australia over the 3 test matches? Paul, who do you think it'll be? Leading wicket taker for Australia.
I remember that Stefan Edberg said when he was a kid that they used to play this game in Sweden, trying to guess the make of the car that was next coming around the corner. And that I think the most common car is the Volvo and the second most is whatever. But Stefan Edberg said, I always guessed the Volvo because it was the percentages. So in this instance, you just got to guess Nathan Lyon. I'm not saying he's a Volvo in any way, shape or form. It's just that he's going to bowl the most overs. He's going to be, that's that was a pretty ordinary analogy, wasn't it?
No, we got there in the end. We got the bloody answer. Barrett, I might have to get you off commentary next Tuesday.
I won't have as much coffee before that.
Barrett?
I think I'm going to go with, I just think we are living in the era of Pat Cummins. And, I really think the way he used himself during the Ashes, I know it wasn't against a very competitive England side. I think he's going to use himself very smartly over there. And I think he's going to end up with the most wickets. I'm not saying Nathan Lyon's not going to bowl well. But look, fast bowlers can take a lot of wickets in Pakistan, which we will realize. And not just in Rawalpindi. Even, the pitches can be a little up and down as the test match wears on. And the fast bowlers do come in. That's why Pakistan creates so many fast bowlers or produce so many anyway.
Yeah, I think Mitchell Starc will take the most wickets for Australia on those pitches with his extra pace. Alrighty, that was all the questions from the listeners and the viewer in the US. Thank you for watching. All right, let's wrap this up with Can't Let It Go. That little bit of cricket news you just can't let go through to the keeper. Alex Carey's waiting for it, but it doesn't come. And Paul, what have you got for us?
Well, speaking of keepers, I just hope that Rod Marsh recovers. It's just been such a sad state of affairs this week to learn of Rod Marsh's heart attack. His last test match was the first test match I can remember, and it was the Australia versus Pakistan at the SCG at the end of the summer of 1983-84, and it was the last test match of Greg Chappell and Dennis Lillee and Rod Marsh. And so for me, those three, they're always sort of tantalizing, because I watched cricket before that, my brain just didn't record it. So it's right on the edge of a wonderful era. I've read lots of his books and some of his comedy books that he wrote with Ian Chappell. I feel like I kind of know him, even though I've never met him. And he's only 74, so hopefully he can pull through. But it sounds like it was a really major heart attack. So fingers crossed that we can get some good news about Rod Marsh this week.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. Barrett, do you have a bit of cricket news you just can't let go through to the keeper?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, prayers and thoughts with Rod Marsh and his family. Like you said, Paul, he's such a wonderful servant of the game. But I think I have to go back to India and the news about Virat Kohli playing his 100th test in front of crowds. There's been a lot of talk about how dare the BCCI make sure that Virat Kohli plays his 100th test match in front of nobody. The man who's brought in more people than anyone else to watch cricket, not just in India, but around the world. How dare they make sure that, they don't make sure that he plays his 100th test in front of people. Eventually, like it works out in Indian cricket, the people, the BCCI has listened to them, and they've gone back on what they said, and there will be people who are walking into I don't know what the stadium's called in Mohali, but anyway, the cricket stadium in Mohali to watch Virat Kohli, India's famous son, play his first test on Indian soil without the captain's band. It's a new era of Indian cricket. Rohit Sharma, captain, Rahul Dravid, coach. So that's going to be interesting. I don't think many would have picked this 6 months ago when there was talk of where would Virat Kohli play his 100th test. Nobody would have picked the fact that he won't be captain when that happens. But it's amazing. Hopefully he gets that long-awaited 100 that everybody's been talking about as well.
Absolutely. Well, what I can't let go of is the fact that Australia's back in Pakistan means we get to talk about Tubby Taylor's 334 not out again, because, I mean, I was a massive Tubby Taylor fan, and you forget this 334 came up after he went through a couple of years where he didn't look like he could score a run, and then he goes out and equals Bradman. I mean, to me, it was one of the greatest feats in Australian cricket history. And I'm just glad that Australia going back there, we get to relive all these great memories. And, Paul and I often talk about the 94 tour. And I think it was Rawalpindi where Steve Waugh scored that 90 odd. And we stayed up listening to the radio because there was no coverage, just get the hourly update. So just loving this kind of nostalgia from my, long lost youth.
Oh, look, mate, Mark Taylor,
I knew this was coming.
Very good player, good captain, and nice guy. He shouldn't have been in the side. He should have been dropped in 1997. The fact that he got that 334 on the flattest pitch of all time, and also, I don't know how I remember this, but I'd actually had, how's this for a bet? I had $20 on Steve Waugh to be the top scorer in that innings. I think Steve Waugh came out in Australia with like 3 for 500 with Taylor on 240. I still hoped somehow that it would happen, but it didn't. And for Taylor to equal Bradman, the greatest player of all time, it was just a hideous moment that. God, I can't believe that's one of your cherished memories. What a horrible note to end the podcast on.
Well, one of the great memories of Australian cricket, and one of the greatest captains. And Barrett's disgusted with that.
I'm not disgusted with anything. I'm just surprised. At what age did you start betting, Paul? I mean, did you have a bet on that final test for Chapel?
He did. Yeah, he did. He was the bloke outside the TAB asking the older blokes to go in and put the bet on for him.
It's nice of you to think that I'm younger than I am. Actually, my first bet was as a 6-year-old. My grandmother put it on for me. Just put it on the races without me even asking. So that's but as I always say, I will show anyone who wants to see my lifetime record, and I am in profit, especially on cricket. So, I'm one of the few that aren't losing a lot. I'm actually in the black.
Wonderful. And my other favorite memory of that tour of Pakistan, I'm just going to throw this into trigger, Paul, wasn't it Justin Langer's career was saved? He was almost dropped. He goes out there, he gets hit below the knee roll in front of middle stump, huge appeal. It might have been Shoaib Akhtar, I can't remember. And the umpire shakes his head. Langer makes 100.
The umpire?
Maybe, yeah. And straight, he makes 100, plays another 100 tests.
But that doesn't trigger me. I like Langer. He's a good player. He's a much better batter than bloody Mark Taylor. And don't get me wrong, Taylor was a good Sheffield Shield player and should have played a few test matches. He just played more than his ability warranted.
He's got almost 900 runs in an Ashes.
Yeah, that's fine. So, I always say, for a while, Alex Stewart, I think, was the most prolific run scorer for England. You don't go on aggregate, mate. You go on average. And he had an average in the low 40s, which is fine and very good. But Langer, that was great. It was good that his career was saved. It was absolutely plumb, though. I'd love to see what Hawkeye showed.
Hitting middle of middle. Well, Barrett, thanks for joining us on Cricket Unfiltered. As I said, the fact that you can't go over is a real shame, but we're really glad that you gave up some time for us and jumped on.
No, I mean, I haven't given up on going. So, Menace, hopefully things turn around and I'm there before. I mean, I can't reach that before the first test, but hopefully I'm there once the test starts. But if not, like, look, it is what it is. I will be watching every ball of that series, and yeah, this has been fun as always. I'm sure Jalissa can't wait to come back and take her deserved seat in that little box. But yeah, always fun with you guys.
Yeah, and we put out on Twitter, but we've made a decision this year on Cricket Unfiltered. We're just going to commit to recording live online on YouTube. I've ordered Jaleesa a microphone headset because she doesn't have a laptop. She's the only millennial I've ever met without a laptop.
Wow.
And so it's all going to be sorted, the sound for the next show. Thanks for sticking with us. Even Shane, who said it was a good show, and then Sledge. Just Paul, can't wait to get behind the commentary mic with you next Tuesday.
Yep, looking forward to that immensely. And thankfully, it's not going to clash too much with the test match. We'll be able to. That's what I'll actually need when we're on commentary. When you do, it'll overlap slightly with the start of the test of it'll be day 4 if they're still going. I know it'll be day 5, won't it?
Result
yeah,
day.
Actually, yeah, it could be the result. So just when you're about to give an update, I'll hold my hands over my ears because I want to go back home and watch it, rewind and watch it as live without knowing. So just do that favor for me. And Bharat, thanks for coming on. It's always great, and hopefully that they see their way fit to give you the visa, because it sounds like it'd be a great deal of fun to be over there.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to Cricket Unfiltered. We'll be back.